in Utah, and this is the Liberty Moms Show. Liberty Moms are the original secretaries of defense. We are the real defenders of the home front, and we are there when it comes to defending our families and our communities. I'm your host today, Delane England, and I'm so glad that you're with us. We have a great lineup. We have another Liberty Mom that will be joining us. Her name is Tenna Hartman. She is all about liberty and all about teaching our posterity and our candidates to be liberty minded and to align with the Constitution. We're also going to be joined by another candidate, someone running for office. His name is Frank Mylar, and he is running for the AG of Utah, and he is definitely a liberty dad. He has been also on the front lines of fighting for liberty for moms, dads, and children. And then we're going to do a really in-depth training for delegates, for county and state delegates. We're going to teach delegates what an important job you have and how to do that, especially for first-time delegates, so that you really know, you feel like you're armed and prepared and you know what you need to do. So we can really do a great job vetting the candidates, because it's a lot more than just showing up for the convention. So we are going to welcome our Liberty Mom, Tenna Hartman. Tenna, we are so glad to have you with us. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. How are you? It's so great to be
I'm,
here.
I'm so great. I'm so glad that you could join us. She is a great mom. She has, just to give you really quick, because we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about you, Tenna. We want to give you time to talk about what you stand for and what you believe in.
Okay.
So Tenna she has, I don't know, 4 kids or 5 kids?
I have 5 children.
5 children. Sorry about that. She has 5
Yep.
children, and she ended up with being a single mom. And
Yep.
instead of being a victim about it and just like saying I'm all is lost, she went out and started a business. Like we were just talking about entrepreneurship with Senator Baldry. She started her own business and became very successful and was able to create value and raise her children. And she has learned the Constitution. She's actually a certified Constitution instructor, Thomas Jefferson Center for Constitutional Studies, same as me. And she has really been out there on the front lines teaching and educating about the Constitution, educating about freedom and liberty, and helping people understand this. And also been involved in our legislature in taking a stand. She's been the United Women's Forum president for several years and just been in the trenches. And so we're so happy and excited to welcome you, Tenna.
Well, thank
Thank you.
you. And I'm so excited to be here and to run and to get my message out because I am pro family. I have seen a lot of the bills that have been run in the legislature for the past several years, and I am very concerned about the bills that are being proposed, the bills that are being voted on. And even though there are some good bills, there are an awful lot of bills that are just hurting our families, and they're hurting our liberties, and they're infringing upon our property rights and upon our cities and our county rights. We have a lot of government overreach going on at the state level, and people don't realize that because they are focused on the federal level a lot because of
A lot.
media. So they do
Mhm.
not understand all of the
Or
things that are
not,
going
or not
on.
focused at all on any of it. They just are going to movies
Yeah.
and sports, and they don't even know that things are so bad. So sometimes
Yeah.
they're not even focused on either one. Sorry.
And sometimes we send our legislators there and we don't really watch them, and we don't see how they vote. We don't give them feedback. Everybody's busy and we're going about our days. And so you mentioned being a delegate, and really your representative is a representative form of government. You're trying to find somebody who is like-minded to go there and to help protect your freedoms, your family, your liberty. And I don't feel that that's been done recently with certainly certain candidates, and I'd like to be able to make a difference there, and getting some good bills and getting rid of some of the bad bills that have been put
Yes.
forth. So
Yes. Well, I had Senator Heidi Baldry on, and every single bill that she passed this year, her very
Mhm.
first session, every one of them was a bill to get rid of some of the overreach and the
Yeah.
government regulation. So it can happen, and they all passed, every one of them. So there is kind of a will for that to happen. And I want to start with a question that I ask every guest that I have on. Where did you learn the principles of the Constitution?
Well, you know what? My very first time I went to a class that was held about healing of America, and it just sparked something inside of me. And I realized that I had been taught some of this stuff in school, but not all of it. And there was not a lot of detail that we were given about the stories behind the Constitution, the stories behind the Declaration. And I just became enamored with the history and these people and the men and the women that were working behind the scenes that don't get credit. And I think that then really motivated me to learn more about our founding documents like the Declaration and the Constitution and how they fit together. And so I did take some classes, and there are so many options out there nowadays for people to get
Yes.
in to learn about the Constitution and what the real intent was. One of the eye-opening things was when I was taking part of a class on the amendments, and watching the amendments and seeing what's going on has gone on in our history, and how each amendment to the Constitution has really changed the whole entire fabric of our society and changed our freedoms.
Mhm.
And so we have to be very careful with our amendments to the Constitution because they have far, far reaching consequences.
And
Yeah.
very hard to repeal, although we have done it once. They are hard to
Yeah.
repeal. And I just want to mention that the Bill of Rights, the
Hmm.
first 10, which are considered amendments, but they are the Bill of Rights. And the reason
Yeah.
we distinguish is because the Bill of Rights does not actually amend or change the Constitution. It simply makes more clear what is already there. It makes
Yeah.
more clear what the federal government cannot do and what they must do. And the other 17 amendments from 11 to
Hmm.
17 have actually gone in and
And
changed the
changed it.
original Constitution. So I know
Yeah.
you know that, but just for others. But Tena, what in you made you want to take a class? Because obviously there was already something, a spark there that you thought, oh, I'll take my time and go take this class because it was expensive and very time consuming.
Yeah. And it was time consuming. You know, I just really felt in my being that I needed to teach this to my children. And I don't
Yeah.
feel like I was given a good enough education in the public schools or that I went to. And so and really I had gone that first night and learned about, you know,
Uh-oh. We just lost Tena.
and how
Okay,
Christopher
great. She's back.
Columbus and the parts that they played. And it really did just something burned within my heart. And I knew that these things were true. I heard this story about Patrick Henry and his speech about give me liberty or give me death. And it really struck me that he used the word liberty. He didn't use the word freedom. He used the word
No, he didn't.
liberty. And
Yes.
as I went on and began to study, I realized that there was a real difference. They already had freedom. They could do, here we were a relatively free country, although we were having usurpation by the king and the government. But there was a difference in their mind between freedom and liberty.
There
And
was.
it just, I just am naturally a curious person and I like to learn. And I just thought, I want to learn about why did he use that word? Why did our founders use the word liberty? Why did they not use freedom? And so, and learning that, I learned that the Constitution was set up to protect our liberties. And it was so freeing and just wonderful to see that this document could protect all the people in America, that we could be respectful of one another, that we could love one another, and we could still have the rule of law.
Yes, I love that because that is what a republic is, and that, there's freedom where we are free to choose, but liberty is really being free to do what you ought to do, not what you want to do, but liberating ourselves from the really the chains of this world, being liberated through Christ,
Sorry,
the
I can't
author
hear.
of true
I can't hear
liberty.
you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, yeah, the difference between freedom and liberty, it is significant and it is substantial because you're free to choose, but you're never liberated if you don't choose wisely and righteously. If you don't choose good, you actually put yourself into bondage through your freedom to choose. So, okay, Kenna, I can still hear you. And okay, we can hear you. So, and now we lost your picture, but we can probably still hear you. So, you decided to run for the legislature and that you're House 19. That is Bountiful, West Bountiful, a tiny sliver of Centerville. And do you have any North Salt Lake? You really don't have any North Salt Lake, do you?
I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties.
Hey, darn it. Yeah. We can hear you. So if you want to just say why, if you can hear me at all, tell us why you decided to run and tell us what your platform is. We just lost Tenna. So I'm sure she will, work on getting back here. She was having some technical difficulties. And that happens with technology. Have you not noticed? It happens all the time, especially annoying when you're doing a radio show or voting. And that's when it's really bad, is when we have techno problems and technology problems when we're in elections. That's when it's especially
Yeah.
bad. Okay, Tenna, what you decided to run for the House of Representatives, mostly because a lot of people begged you to, because they said we want representation.
Right.
So what is your stand? What is your platform? What do you want to have happen?
Well, as I mentioned, I would really like to get rid of some very bad legislation that's been run. I believe in protecting our families. I believe in the right to life, and I believe that we should protect our children. And I don't agree with boys and men playing in girls' sports. I believe that we should not be having government overreach into our cities and our counties and telling us how our cities and counties should be run. I think that each of us should be willing and should be able to, in our communities, decide what do we want our community to look like? What do we want our cities to look like? What kind of laws do we want to have here locally? And there has been a lot of government overreach. And especially there's been government overreach in not protecting our personal data and our personal medical data. And I would like
Right.
to see things change to where we had some more protection with that. So,
Okay, so your opponent actually sponsored last year a bill that would take everyone, not every single person, but everyone, it'd be about 80% of the citizens of the state of Utah, everyone that uses the top four networks, and require them to put all of their information in one central bank, in a central data bank with all of our medical data that is protected, privacy protected, and he would put it in one central place. Okay, so how would you feel about a bill like that? Where would you stand on that bill? Could you hear me?
yeah. You know,
Okay,
I'm personally, I'm an extremely private person. And I believe that my medical data or my personal data should be mine. Now, if I want to choose to share that data and put it in a repository, okay, that could be my choice. But I don't think
sure.
that any physician, I don't think that my hospital, I don't feel that any my school or anybody should be able to share that data with a government repository or a commercial repository. I mean, as we just saw, even with this little glitch, and we saw like Facebook went down last week, where people didn't have access to Facebook or they didn't have,
Right.
problems with the internet. It's just not, we don't have the technology for it to be as safe, but it still should be
We
my
don't.
choice. It's all about
Mhm.
personal choice, and people should have the choice to opt out. I mean, I think that we should have the option to opt in, not be required
Right.
to opt out of that.
It should not be incumbent on us to find out that they've shared our information and maybe selling it and that it's
Correct.
in a repository. I have had my ID stolen twice. I've had
Right.
my medical records. I've never even been to the U of U ever before, but
Right.
somehow they got my medical records and it got hacked into. They sent me a letter saying my medical records had been hacked into. I'm like,
Right.
how do you have my medical records? Because I've never even been to the U of U before.
Yeah.
But my dad went there, and so somehow my medical records And I don't know exactly how they got them, but I have no idea. But it was very
Right.
frustrating, and we know that it cannot be held secure because if someone can put it there, someone can hack it.
Yeah.
That is just a universal truth. They can hack it, and it's hard. And I know we try really hard to make it secure, but you can't ever. So people should be able to opt in. That's a really big problem. And you know what I also found out is your opponent said, well, we need it because as a doctor, as a medical professional, if you come in and you're unconscious and we ask, well, have you had this done? Have you had this? So what were you treated with? What are you taking? We don't know that information, which seems really reasonable. I'm like, gosh, that is a serious problem. But then in talking to other medical professionals, a lot of them, I found out, first of all, it's extremely rare. Second of all they have to do is ask any other providers, and they almost always have that information within an hour. All they have to do is just reach out and say, what do you have on this? This is a patient of mine. We need these records. And they can get that information almost without exception in an hour. So that really doesn't really warrant sharing everyone's data and private information and putting it. We know centralization of power is always going to end in tyranny. So just
Yeah.
think about the unintended consequences of that, where the government or one medical professional, either one medical um, establishment would have all this information about so many people. And
Right.
especially because I just got forced onto socialized medicine this year, and I'm not pleased at all. But I mean, it's not like the government provides it, but I'm forced to get it. Um, yeah, I don't like that at all. My choices are so much limited than
Mhm.
what they were before because I loved what I had before.
Well,
Okay,
and we do have electronic medical record sharing. If you've been to a hospital, they have that information in
right,
it. So if you come into an emergency room, they do have some information on you.
they
Again,
do.
I think it should be my opt in. And what have we done for many hundreds of years about this? I would have to really be convinced that this is going to really make a difference in a lot of people's lives and that it's going to actually, so the trust issue between the data privacy and what the benefit really is, I don't think that that question's been answered well.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the another bill that has come up this year, it was this year's bill, being sponsored by your opponent, was to have a jungle primary. It was literally a bill to say anybody can sign up to run in a primary. We would do away with the caucus system and the convention system, and then everybody from every party would just sign up, and we would just all have a primary with those individuals, those candidates, and then you wouldn't have to have a 50% plus one. It's just whoever got the most amount of votes. If you have 25 people running in that election, it would just be who got the most amount of votes. So, what do you
Right.
think of that?
Well, when we talk about the Constitution and a Republican form of government, we're talking about the fact that you have a busy life, you lead a busy life, and how much time do you have to vet the candidates? And, with the caucus system, you have people who are genuinely interested. They want to vet the candidates. They believe in taking the time to do that. And so they are actually going out and interviewing the candidates and spending time. Normally, the populace doesn't really spend a lot of time. Either they don't enjoy politics, they would rather crochet or go to movies or be on the end. I mean, or they
Or
work
work?
hard and they just don't
Mhm.
have time. And so what happens is you have the people who have the most posters win, or people who have the best postcard win, and it's more of a popularity contest. And so you don't really get a feel for what they believe in. And so I believe in the caucus system because I believe that those people that are truly participating want to put forth the effort. They are truly informed.
Okay, dang it, we lost Tenna again. But yes, and we're going to talk about that. So that would really that really flies in the face of the republic that our founding fathers and founding mothers created for us, is having a jungle primary like that. We can look at California, they do have a lot of jungle primaries there, and we can see, do they produce better candidates and better legislators, or maybe not so great. So that is an example that you can look at. It would basically be making what we making what they have in California and bringing it here.
Yeah.
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 Okay. What other bill? Do you have any specific bills that you would like to talk about?
Well, I do think that this year that there were some bills, HB 13 and some other bills that really usurped government authority in what their taxation ability would be, those types of things. I am concerned about the stadium bills for the new stadium and how they're going to have the tax money, and those are public-private partnerships. That's where they're using our tax dollars to create infrastructure, and then they are then leasing that infrastructure or working hand in hand with millionaires and billionaires, and who keeps the profits from that. And so we've got to be really careful of that, because that is how socialist governments and nefarious players, actors, come into the government. They take our tax dollars, build up themselves, build up their companies, and then they keep all the profits, and the people don't really benefit from that. And so I have a lot of concerns about those types of bills. I don't think that public private partnerships should be a part of our government in Utah at all.
Well, they shouldn't be. Ken, we know they shouldn't because they're completely unconstitutional, and there's a word for that. We call it fascism. So it is really important to adhere to our Constitution and our constitutional principles, because we know that whenever business, free enterprise system, and the government collide and they co-join with each other, then there's a loss of freedom and a violation of
Yes.
principle where those should be remain separate. Now, that doesn't mean a business can't send out a contract with multiple companies and say, we need this work done. We're
Yeah.
contracting with it, and we get the best bid, which is not necessarily the lowest price, but the best bid, the best who's going to create the most value and the best
Right.
situation. And then you have a certain, but the business maintains their business, the government maintains their role as a government, versus having them intertwine with each other, which is a
Yeah.
big problem. So
Yeah.
yeah, I call it, but Ron Mortensen coined this phrase, which I love. Those kinds of things, public-private partnerships, and like the baseball and the hockey, are socializing the costs. So the costs are socialized, but privatizing the profits. So we all pay for the infrastructure, and then the companies, the billionaires, actually make money off of our tax dollars and off of the business that we funded.
Right.
So you can kind of think about, is that going to turn out to be a good idea? That they don't fund my business. They don't pay for the infrastructure of my business, and nor do I want them to, because I don't want them to control me. And they don't pay for yours, nor should they. And I don't think they should for anybody else. So yeah, that is a big problem with that kind of thing. And the other problem is we've already done it. We do it with ski resorts. We do it with movies, with movie makers. We do subsidize them, and we do it a lot. So, okay, Tina, you're still with us. I can't see your beautiful face, but you're still here. I'm going to hope that you can still hear me. Okay, was there another bill that you were particularly interested in? Okay, I can't hear you, and you are not disconnected, but I would like to, while we're waiting for you to get back, we did have Senator Heidi Baldery on, and I wanted to share with you a way to check her out. She's Senate District 22. You go to Heidi Baldery. So this is really tricky because it's not Balder Tree, and it's bald. It's Heidi, just the regular way you spell Heidi. It's bald and then Erree. So Balder re. So bald Erree. So both the R's and the E's have double. And so you can go to HeidiBaldery.com and you can check out her website. I know she would love to have some help, and she could really use some funds, because we always can when we're running. And great candidate, and I hope you'll support her. And then when Tina comes back, and I may have to look this up myself because I really don't know her website. So I can't tell you it, but I'm going to look it up and see if I can find out while we're hoping that she comes back. And yeah, I don't know what her website is, but we are going to find it out so you can share. And that is a great place it's very important, again, to vet the candidates, get to know them. So I'm going to wait just a minute, see if we can get Tenna back. If not, we're going to go right into nope, we lost Tenna again. Okay, she's back. We'll see. She must be in a very difficult area. Okay, Tenna,
Yeah.
you're.
I tried to move to a different place to see if I could get a
Oh,
better
okay.
area.
Okay,
But
let's
my
hope this works.
website is tennahartman.net and .com.
.net.
You can get, yeah, .net.
Okay, so
Yeah.
tennahartman.net or
Hmm.
tennahartman.com.
Correct. Both of those work.
Okay, fantastic. So that's super easy. Tenna
Mhm.
is Tenna.
Yep.
Tenna Hartman, Hart, Hart, man. So
Yep.
it's just two words, heart and man, but it's not like a big heart. It's like
Right.
Hart, the way you spell it, like a surname.
Right.
So tennahartman.com or
Right.
tennahartman.org. Okay, fantastic. So you can go on there. You can learn more about Tenna and find out what she stands for and what she's doing. She could really use help. There's all kinds of help. Really need help with volunteers, and any donations would be greatly appreciated. So, okay, Tenna, um, as you have as you have been running, what have you been finding as you have? I'm assuming you're going out and talking to delegates.
Yeah.
And what are you
You know,
finding?
I'm finding that a lot of people are really excited to have another option. They're excited to have somebody running. And I really feel like there are a lot of people somewhat disenfranchised. And so they're happy to have a candidate that maybe espouses their values. And so it's been really uplifting to find people that are excited that there's another option for them. And so it makes me feel good that there's a lot of good delegates out there, and you've got to get with your delegates and you've got to talk to them and tell them how you feel and remind them that they need to vet all of the candidates. They need to vet everyone. But a lot of people are concerned. They're very concerned about this, where we're going, where our state is going, and the laws that have been run. So that's really uplifting to see that there are a lot of people concerned.
Yes, that is. And it is always really wonderful to talk to the delegates because you get the people who really are interested and care and are engaged.
Yes.
So, okay. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us today? We're going to go into delegate training so we can
Okay.
help to train. And I know you know that really well, but I want to give you a chance to share anything else that you want to share. Um, and I would like to talk to you about your caucus briefly.
Yes, I would just encourage you to go and learn a little bit more about the candidates' voting records. There are several third-party websites that have done a little bit of work for people. Pro Life has a website that ranks the candidates based on how well they promote being pro-life. You have got the Utah Taxpayer Association ranks the candidates on how well they do on taxing. You have grassroots. Is it Utah Grassroots? I
It's
think is the website.
utahgrassroots.org.
.org.
Utahgrassroots.org.
And they actually rank bills based on faith and family and freedom and how well they uphold the Constitution and the rule of law and those types of things. And so all of those websites give you an opportunity to see how your candidate did. And then they also give you some ideas on what to look for to ask the delegates. So,
Yeah, so we have some really amazing tools that really help us as citizens and especially as delegates to vet the candidates. Plus, I don't think there's anything more valuable than meeting with the candidates personally. I think meeting with the candidates is the very best way, but you
Right.
have to look at their voting record if they have been in office, because anybody can say anything and justify anything, but it's really important to go and see how they voted. Pro-life Utah is really great because it is one of the most important issues that we have of our time, life,
Yeah.
and it is constitutionally expedient for the government to protect everyone's right to life. So that is very clear distinction.
Right.
I love Utah Grassroots because they're utahgrassroots.org, because they are all about the Constitution. And if the bill, it's not whether they like it or not
Right.
whether it's good for them. It's like, is this bill aligned with the principles of the Constitution? And they tell you the bill, and then they tell you why they agree with the vote or disagree. So they tell how every senator and every House member voted on 25 or 30 bills, and then how they felt, why they should, whether it's aligned or not aligned with the
Right.
Constitution, and then state that. So you don't just like, yeah, they voted, you just get a number. You get
Right.
to learn about the bills and why they were good or not good. And no bill is probably perfect completely. And a lot of them get changed and make some changes so they can become a little bit better. And then keep in mind, Utah Taxpayers Association, they are more for businesses. So their perspective of keeping taxes lower is not for the individual person, but for businesses. Now, that's great because I'm a business owner, and I think everyone here probably buys things from business owners. So we know that when business owners have to pay more taxes or get hit heavily, it impacts the consumer. So we don't want businesses to get hurt really hard on taxes. But I also want people to understand it's not, their perspective isn't how we as citizens, as consumers and citizens and homeowners or employees, how we're taxed. It's how their emphasis is on how businesses get taxed and don't get taxed. So that's kind of an important distinction. Okay, so
Just a little comment about that. I think that we don't realize, according to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the states are a protection to our freedoms. And it is so important that your House representative know that they are going there as a representative for our state, and they can enact laws that protect us against federal government overreach as well. And as a small business owner, and with COVID and different things, there are a lot of laws right now coming out from the federal government, and we need to be able to protect our small businesses and our families from that federal government overreach. And that is also the job of the state government, is to protect us as a people from usurpation of the federal government. And so I just want to mention that because it is so important, not just for families, but for small business owners, for everybody.
absolutely, for every individual. Okay, Tana, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. I'm so excited for your race.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all the value that you have created. And so we're going to just take a shift. And I just remind everybody, TenaHartman.com, TenaHartman.org. So go check her out. If you live in the
Not net.
Bountiful area,
Yeah, TenaHartman.net or TenaHartman.com. Yeah, I don't
so
have,
sorry.
yeah, that's okay.
No, not
Perfect.
org. Thank you for, yeah, well, now we have everyone's attention. So it's TenaHartman.net
Uh-huh.
or TenaHartman.com. If you
Right.
go to TenaHartman.org, you're just going to come up missing. So don't bother to do that. So now
Right.
you can keep it straight. TenaHartman.com or .net.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So now we are going to shift gears a little bit. And this is an issue that Ten is very well educated on and cares very much about. So feel free to stay and chime in, Tenna.
Okay.
We're going to talk about delegate training because hopefully everybody, at least most everybody, attended your caucus meeting. We just had them on March 5th on Tuesday. Everyone in the state, every single person, even if you're a child, was invited to, although you'd probably be bored out of your mind if you're really young, but everyone was invited to go to a caucus meeting. Everyone that is a registered Republican is invited to go to the Republican caucus. The Democrats had one, and the Constitution Party. I really can't say if independents had one. I kind of think maybe not, but independents were welcome to go to the Republican or the Democrat, and I think also the Constitution Party. So everyone had a place that they could go. In order to vote in the Republican caucus, you had to register as a Republican.
Right.
Now, what I can say, I can testify as a person who seeks and speaks the truth. We had quite a number of Democrats who attended our Republican caucus meeting. And they did go and register as Republicans so that they could vote. Some of them registered in advance, some of them registered that night, most of them registered in advance, or they unaffiliated so that they could participate and vote in our caucus meeting. But here is what's so awesome about the caucus. Our founding fathers had every single form of government that they could choose from. And they weren't just winging it. They studied, all of them studied the philosophers, and they studied history, and they studied the different kinds of government that preceded them. And they knew what they each did. And they knew they didn't want a monarchy. They'd already just trying to get out of that. They knew that wasn't going to work. They knew they didn't want a dictatorship. They didn't want any kind of oligarchy. And they also knew they didn't want a democracy. And let me tell you, the founders were so clear about the dangers of a democracy because they don't last, they waste themselves, they commit suicide, and they did not want a democracy. They wanted to have, and they chose very wisely and very carefully, a republic form of government. And I just want to tell you what a republic form of government is, because most people go, well, yeah, we live in a republic. Because when you pledge your allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the democracy for which it stands, we never say that. Ridiculous. We don't say we say to the republic because they created a republic. And so they chose a republic because it was the only form of government. If you think of all the kinds of governments that are out there, the only form of government that can protect the rights of every individual is a republic. Did we not want to live in a country where every single person's rights are protected? In a democracy, whose rights are protected? Only yours if you're in the majority. Because if you're in the minority in a democracy, the mob or the majority rule everything.
Right.
And so you have no protection. So that is one of the main reasons that they wanted the republic. Another reason is they wanted the rule of law. They were tired of the king coming and going, well, you know what? I don't like what you did here, so I'm going to put you in jail. I don't like what you're doing, so you're going to have to come over to England to defend yourself. And we're going to try you in English courts instead of American courts. At a whim. He's just like, you know what? You did this and I don't like it. And so I'm just going to put you in jail for it. There was no rule of law, no protection. You needed to know what's against the law before you do something, because you don't go, well, I did that, but now the king decided now that's against the law, but it wasn't against the law when I did it.
Right.
They didn't want to live under that anymore. And so they wanted the rule of law. And in the republic, everyone's rights are protected and you have a rule of law. So the rule of law stands. It is the law. And that provides that everyone gets treated equally.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if you're the governor or the garbage collector. If you violate the law, and everyone is supposed to be treated the same. If you violate it, there needs to be consequences and repercussions. And the other thing that's really important is that in a republic, everyone that is elected to and even not elected, anyone who holds an office of power over the people, because they're elected by the people for the people. But if they have power over the people, they must take an oath. And they do not take an oath to do what I think is right. We do not take an oath to uphold our conscience. Notice we take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. And in Utah, we also take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Utah, and for whatever state you live in. And that is so important. Now, should our conscience not be aligned with the Constitution? If those are separate, then something's wrong, something's off. Our Constitution should very much be aligned with our conscience should be very much aligned with the Constitution of the United States. So those three things, and we do elect people, and we are a representative government, which you can have in a democracy. You don't have any other form, but that is the one part of our republic. We do have that democratic when it comes to elections, to elect by majority who we want to represent us, not to rule over us, not to control us, but who we want to represent us in the government. And so I did want to mention that in the caucus meeting, where everyone is invited, the caucus meeting is really a microcosm of the republic, because everyone's welcome to go. Everyone goes there. And then, can you imagine, in the legislature this year, we had 940 bills that were voted on. Can you imagine, as a citizen, all of the citizens trying to read 940 bills and make a decision and vote on those bills? That's what you do in a democracy. And thank goodness we don't have that, or no longer do we want it. And we tried, as some of us as citizens tried to read all those bills. We still didn't get it done because we only have 45 days. But we did read the majority of them. We did read most of them. And then they change. And so then you have to stay on top of those changes. But this is what's so great about the caucus. They take the principles of a republic, and we bring that down into a caucus where we elect representatives from our neighborhood who think like us, who are Republicans, or who are Democrats, who represent us and our ideology, who are aligned with our platforms. They must be aligned with our platform to get elected. Supposedly, they're making an agreement that they actually sign a pledge that they are aligned with our platform and will represent us in alignment with that platform. And they're elected, these delegates are elected to go out and to do two things. A lot of people think we're just supposed to go to the convention. Yes, that's a very important part. But much more important and essential before the convention meeting is to vet the candidates. Now, if you vet the candidates, that means that you're going to meet with them, talk to them, visit with them, ask them questions, find out how aligned with the Constitution and the party platform they are, because that is very essential. If we want to have them take an oath to uphold the Constitution, we want to know that they're going to be aligned with it and they're going to keep that oath. So vetting the candidates is extremely essential. So Tenna, I ask you, are you willing to be vetted by delegates? You're going to mostly get vetted by county delegates. Are you okay with that? Do you want people to ask you the hard questions? Well, I just lost Tenna, and I don't think it's because I asked her that question, because I know she's very willing to answer whatever questions. She has numerous meet and greets lined up. She's going to many, and if anybody wants to do one, they can. So I know. Tenna, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question was, are you okay with delegates vetting you and also citizens vetting you and asking you where you stand on the Constitution, but on the bills and on the principles? Are you okay about people asking you that?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. They should be asking us. You should be trying to find out. One of the reasons we have a caucus is that you are supposed to know what the Republicans stand for. You are supposed to know what their platform is. The same with the Democrats. You're supposed to know what their platform is and what they believe in. A person should align themselves with the platform that most closely resembles what they believe in. And then your whole goal is to try to get candidates that believe in that platform and that support that platform. I want people to ask me those questions. I want you to be clear and ask my opponent those questions, and that's why you need to know where they vote, because you need to know, did they vote to uphold your beliefs and your principles? So we want to know that information, and I want them to ask me. That's how they get to know if I align with what they believe in.
Excellent. That's exactly right. We won't know that. And that's the beauty of the caucus is you go to this meeting, you get elected, or you elect someone to represent you, and they are going to go do the hard
Right.
work of talking to, meeting with, and vetting all the candidates that are running for a county office, or the state delegates who are going to be vetting all those who are running on a statewide ticket, or that might be their state senator who's represents two counties. If it crosses county lines, then they're going to be elected at the state convention. And so that's really, really important to understand that that is an important part of it.
Yeah.
And I always recommend to people that they should talk to every candidate at least 3 times because you want to see if they're giving the same answers to different audiences or
Right.
if they kind of find out what you're like and then trying to answer what you want to hear. And also, I also want to give credit to candidates are learning from each other and they're learning from you. And so sometimes they will change because they are getting educated by you and they'll give a better answer as time goes on. But you do want to use the power of discernment and see how aligned with the Constitution they are. So, my favorite question to always start the first question I ask every candidate is, what do you think is the proper role of government? So I'm going to ask you, Tana, which you already answered, but what is the proper role of government?
So, our governments were set up to protect us from, for example, outside encroachments, or they were set up to do certain things that we shouldn't necessarily do at a city level. For example, in the Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8, it lists out the 20 specific things that we are asking the federal government to do for us. The same with the state, as it says in the Constitution that all the things not listed here, if you weren't given this authority as a president in the executive branch or the judiciary or the legislature, then everything else is in Article 9. I mean, Amendment 9 is reserved to the people. And then in number 10, it clarifies again that those things are reserved to the states and the people. And so our states are there to have specific jobs to kind of do the job of a collective of the cities. So, for example, you want your cities to pave your roads. You want your cities to take care of local things and local issues that are important to your city. And then what you have with the county is the county government is kind of taking care of things that multiple cities are need to get to have done. So Davis County, for example, is to take care of all the things that the cities as a whole need done, like fire. We have our local fire districts, but we have county things. And so that's the way with the state. Our state is also set up to, like I said, to protect us from the federal government, but they're to do the things that we need multiple counties to do together. But we need to be careful and know what our cities should be doing versus our counties, because that's when the state can come in and say, oh, well, we want you to do this. So, right now, for example, there are a lot of bills being run at the state level. They want to make every city the same.
Mhm.
So they want to tell every city. My opponent, for example, ran a bill that he wants to be able to require cities to allow 8 single family homes per acre. So the question is, should the state government be telling your city what it looks like? What kind of homes you should have? And yes, we do have affordable housing problems, but I think that's even a bigger issue. But the question is, should the state government be telling your city what to do? So that's where we get into the proper role of government. What is the proper role of government of the state? And I don't believe that that's their job, is to tell me what my little bountiful city would look like. Just like I shouldn't tell Carolyn Fippen in her city up in Park City what it looks like, or Draper. Sorry, she's in Draper, right? I
Yeah,
shouldn't
she's
tell
a
her
victim.
what her city looks like. They should be able to decide that for themselves. So,
Right. And I want to make a clarify. I want to clarify here. When cities and counties are over encroaching and stepping on the rights or not ensuring the rights of the people, then the state has to come in and make sure. So that's a time when the state does need to come in and say, you're not allowing authentic and viable, auditable elections in your city, and that's not okay. So then the state can come in where it's wrong is the state wants everyone to be the same and infringes on the rights and the protections of the cities and states. So there again, it's not like the state shouldn't make any laws overriding cities and states. It's only when the cities and states are usurping the freedoms of the people, then the
Well, that's why
state.
you have a constitution. That's why you have a
It
state
is.
constitution. The state
Yes,
constitution tells us what the job of the state is. People don't read the
exactly.
state constitution.
No,
You know,
people don't.
they
Yeah,
barely even read the federal constitution, the
right.
United States
And the
constitution.
state Utah state constitution is longer,
It is.
and
Yeah.
it's not as magical in my opinion. It is a little bit more work to read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the beauty. So that you are going to go and find out where the candidates, where they lie and where they stand. So I do have a list of questions that I recommend that people ask. And my answers on that list are all right out of the Constitution. So they're all aligned. They're not, I mean, they're the way I worded them, but the answers are not my answers. They're alignments with the Constitution and the
I,
party
I
platform.
just want to say one thing about representative form of government. My eyes were open when I went down to the legislature with the United Women's Forum to learn about how all of the different laws work and to see the amount of bills, to see the number of things that are going on simultaneously at the same time really gives you an understanding of why we need good citizens and why we
Yes,
need representatives, because you can't do it all. And as you said, I can't read 900 bills in 45 days. It is impossible.
and neither
And
can legislators, and they try.
no,
They
and
can't.
right. But you would think if you're going to make a decision about bills that affect people, you should have some knowledge about a little bit greater knowledge than what's in there. I mean,
Definitely.
I personally think that we run too many bills during the legislative session. So I would like to see that change. But I just want to say that, you know, going down there and actually seeing what goes on in the bill making process, I think is eye opening for everybody. And everybody should spend the time to go down there because that is why we have representation. Every citizen cannot
Exactly.
do that all of the time. And then that's the caucus system. It's representation. It takes the burden off of you who are working 40, 50 hours a week.
Mhm.
It
Right.
helps those that have little children. Some of the complaints that I saw at the caucus are, well, like, what about moms with children that couldn't come or people that are older and couldn't come? You know what? There's absentee ballots that you could request for those situations so you could still be involved. We want everybody to be involved, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Everyone's invited to, and the parties have provided a way for everyone to be involved. Because if you can't make it, it's once every 2 years. And so
right.
if you really cannot get your schedule situated where you can't, you can send an absentee ballot with someone who is going. And
Right.
so you can have your voice be heard. And you can even just show up and vote anytime. You don't have to stay the entire hour and a half or 2 hours of the meeting. You can just come and say, who's on the ballot? I only have time to vote. And you do not have to come at the beginning and you do not have to stay till the end. So if you've got kids and you don't want to take them to the meeting, pop in with all your kids, cast your vote, and leave. Or bring your kids. It's fine to take your kids to it. Or, like I say, yeah, you can always send your ballot with someone else and be able to still have a say. But this is a republic takes effort. It isn't just like you just have everything taken care of for you and handed to you. It does require us as citizens to get educated and get elected. As Benjamin Franklin said, Mrs. Lewis, she asked what kind of form of government. He said, a republic, ma'am, if you can keep it. And that would require being educated. It requires being moral. It
Yeah.
requires being engaged. This is a republic only works with a moral society. It only works if we're educated and we have to be engaged in order to sustain our republic. So, okay, so when you vet candidates, ask these questions and find out where they stand. And then when you have done that, it's so important to be present at the conventions. State convention is and for the Utah State is April 27th, Saturday, April 27th. And that will be for every state delegate. It is open to the public, so anyone who wants to can attend. You can't vote, but you can attend. And the candidates will be there early in the morning from 6:30 to 7 o'clock on till it begins. So you can, if you haven't been able to vet everyone, you can still go. But the candidates mostly want to be vetted, and if they don't, then you shouldn't vote for them. If
Yeah.
they aren't asking you, if they're not contacting you or responding when you contact them and they don't want to meet with you, then you should not vote for them because they do not want to represent you. They want to represent their interest or who's funding them. So what it looks like when you get to the state convention or you get to the county convention, first of all, like I say, you get to go early and meet the candidates. Then they're going to start the convention with a prayer and a pledge. We always do prayer first and then pledge because God and then country. And then what you're going to find is they're all going to be orchestrated by what we call Robert's rules. And there's a very good reason. It seems odd and it's a little cumbersome. You're like, oh my gosh, this is time consuming. It is, because republics are anything but efficient. They're not efficient, but they're the only form of government that protects freedom. And so plan on the day. Take snacks with you, take a water bottle. Do not make plans anytime before 7 p.m. because you will not, you never know when it's going to end, but plan. Do not get frustrated. Just say, it's going to take a lot of time. It's not fast and efficient. I'm just going to listen and learn and engage. And so Robert's rules are designed to keep us with decorum. It keeps us from attacking each other or battling. So when you go to the mic to speak, because you will be able to, first of all, they present the agenda for the day. They say, this is our agenda. And I don't know if I've ever been to one county or state, or even on the state central committee, where someone didn't propose to change the agenda. So be prepared. Someone is going to want to change the agenda. They're not going to like the order and they're going to say, let's change it. So don't be, oh, I'm so frustrated. I want to get out of here. You got elected. You're there to represent. Be patient and allow everyone a chance to speak and engage. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to vote with them, but allow them to listen or allow them to speak and listen to them. So
just one thing about that, Delane, I think it's important to note that our founding fathers, when they went to the Constitutional Convention, spent many long hours and days working on this in a room in a very hot season that had no air conditioning and no fans running in the ceiling, and they
wore wigs and jackets, and it was in the summer. Yeah. No windows open.
A lot of long hours in this humid environment. But not only that, like you said, the decorum they would address. So when you're addressing, you're going to address the chairperson or the person that's running the meeting. And like you said, that's because we don't want to attack one another. Right. And so recognize that these rules have been in place for a long time to ensure that we talk candidly, frankly, but we do it with kindness and we try to do it with decorum. But don't get frustrated. Just remind yourselves that you are only there for one day. You are there. You've committed to spend an entire day to preserve our liberties. You are there with a very important job. And if you don't show up, then somebody else who doesn't believe like you, doesn't support our platform, doesn't support good principles, will take your place.
That's right.
They're happy to do it. And so, if you go ahead of time, just knowing that you're here, take your crochet, whatever it takes, right?
Right.
And then just, it always helps me to know that other people did something worse than me. Like I can do this in an air conditioned building.
Right.
For a
day, Absolutely. And, I find it just so valuable to listen to everyone's speeches, even though sometimes you're like, well, I can't vote for them. There's so much value in listening to those speeches. And there is value in listening to what people have to say. Even if you disagree, I learned so much, like, what are they thinking? What is their mentality? And you learn, we learn so much from each other even when we disagree with each other. So I really do encourage people to listen to one another and be respectful and know I want people to hear me out. And that's what's so cool about this. You don't have to be anybody. You're a delegate. You have a right to go approach the microphone and say, I have a clarifying question. I want to understand this, or I have an idea. I want to propose this. And the chair is not necessarily an expert on the Robert's rules, and they have a parliamentarian who is an expert that helps them, guide them, and but everyone gets a chance to be heard and to speak. So be careful not to waste anyone else's time, but also if you have something you want to say, you should absolutely say it and be there to talk. So
I would
that you'll
highly
find
advise.
people will get up to the microphone and want to share and have different ideas and
Mhm.
want to change things there. And that is how the system works.
I would highly advise that you go to YouTube and there's a video about the basics of Robert's rules. And it's
Yes, good
not
idea.
very long, but watch a couple of those. It's kind of
Hmm.
fascinating and interesting, and it will give you the basics of what the wording is that you're supposed to
Yes.
be using. And the parliamentarian is there to bring order and to ensure that the rules are followed. And so we need to have
Right.
respect for that person. Um,
Yes.
by all means. So, and you know what? The funny thing is when you're there and those people are talking, you might not like what they have to say, but maybe it would be important for us. And this is what I like to do. I like to figure out why that person, what do I not agree with? But why
Uh-huh.
am I not connecting with them? What is different about them? Their hand movements or their what they're saying that I don't really like, because like you said, that helps me to learn what to do, what
Right.
not to do, how to talk.
Yep.
Are they saying like too much? Are they saying too much? And so if I don't like something, I want to figure out why. So they can always be educational. We can always learn from one another.
Absolutely. And we can find out, yeah, what's the mentality? What's the ideology behind that? Why would they want that? What are they thinking? What can I learn from that? Or maybe I can go present an alternative idea, or how can we amend their idea to make it so it is good? Because you can take kind of a not so
Right.
good of an idea and make an amendment to that idea. But here's what you also want to remember. We want to talk to the audience. We want to talk to all the people there, but we
Right.
don't. We're talking to the chair. So everyone that goes to the microphone speaks to the chair. The chair speaks to us, but everyone can hear us because we're on a microphone. So they can all
Right.
hear, but we're not talking to each other, which I think is a really important part of Robert's rules for the purpose of decorum.
Right.
And so so then I also recommend you will receive an email. And I don't check my emails out often, but be sure and check your emails before a convention because you will receive the agenda you in an email. You will also receive any changes because sometimes there's constitution bylaws that you as a body get to decide if you're going to support that or not, vote for or against. If you don't know about it in advance, you're just like, I don't even understand this. So you want to read it in advance. You might want to ask some questions of other people that have been before who are part of the party. Like, I don't understand what this would do. Why would I want this? Why wouldn't I? Get educated about those things. There's also usually resolutions that you want to read through in advance. So you might want to make a recommendation to make a change, or you'll know, I do not like this and I want to vote against it and I want to speak against it, or I love this and I'm going to go prepared to speak in favor. So find that out before you get there because it's really hard to do. I mean, my first several, I didn't realize I needed to read those in advance and I just felt blindsided. And so that's really, really important. So do that. And then in the county convention, usually you break out into segments after the main body is over. Generally, they will have you break out into your ledge districts or your Senate districts. Usually, starting with the Senate district, you'll meet with all of the ledge districts in that Senate district will meet because there'll be people that you need to vote on and vote for or against. And and then you'll break out into your ledge district so you can vote for a person like Tana Hartman or her opponent. And then that's where Tana's race will actually be, not in the main body. Although last year in Davis County, they did have all of the candidates speak in front of the entire body. And I was kind of frustrated. I'm like, oh, why do I have to listen to all the others that I can't vote for? But as it really turned out, again, I just said, well, this is where we are. Let's not get frustrated. But Oh my goodness, did it give me a great window into all of the candidates. And
Yeah.
even though I couldn't vote for or against them, it gave me so much great information because now I am armed and educated with a lot of information. So when people came to me and said, "What do you think of this person? What do you think of this person?" Well, this is what they said in their speech. This is how they talked down to their opponent. This is how they treated their opponent, as if they were a little kid, as if they didn't even have a right to run.
Right.
That really shares with you their character or lack thereof, and you got a really great window. Not that I would ever make a decision based on one speech, but it gives you a lot of information as to where they are. So I don't know what will happen in your county this year, but I promise you that if you listen, you will find great value in listening to everything that is happening. You will get educated, you will learn, you'll feel so much more confident, and people will be able to come to you. And you will learn about this great republic and the value of the caucus system. And I hope that you will speak in favor of it. Another thing that is really important, they are going to, the chair of the party, the county, or the chair of the state have decided how they are going to vote, what kind of system. We're gone with these great electric systems. A lot of they're even talking about voting on your phone. Doesn't that sound awesome, Tenny? You just pick up your phone, vote on your phone. It's going to be so fast and so
Mm,
efficient. But here's the problem. If you have gray matter that flows, is voting important? The
yeah.
reason that you have just sacrificed your day
Yeah.
is to go vote. That is the main reason you're there, is to go cast your vote after doing all of this work, all of these work and all the meetings you've gone to and all the phone calls and all that comes down to your vote on that day. So let me ask you this. Do you want to know for sure that your vote is counted accurately and everyone else's vote is counted accurately? Or do you just want to get out of there? So if you're voting on a machine, will you ever know that the vote is accurate?
I think the other important thing with that is, can I actually recount it too?
Absolutely.
Can I go
Can they
back and
audit it?
can I say I want to see how my vote was counted? And if
Yes.
you're voting electronically, you cannot really, there's not anything that ties you to that vote that you could go back and say, no, I didn't. I voted this way. And so, and I've been to two state conventions that voted electronically.
Mhm.
And the very first one I went to, it was a nightmare, Delane. There were
Yes.
problems. There's always problems with the internet.
Always
When
problems.
you're inundating an internet with hundreds, I mean, you're talking
Mhm.
about hundreds of delegates that are there.
4,000 delegates at a state
Yeah,
convention. I don't know
yeah,
about other counties, but 2,000 in Davis. So 4,000 people all on a clicker system
yeah.
or a
And it
phone
just
trying to vote at the
overloads.
same time.
Yeah, it overloads the
The
internet. And
system.
so then
Mhm.
it's not working. It's not. And
Right.
that was just a terrible, terrible experience. It took them hours. They were trying to fix it.
Okay.
Finally, they resorted to paper ballots. But it just, so this is
Mhm.
what we're talking about, trust, and our votes have to
Right.
be, it has to be trustworthy. I have to trust that it
Yes.
counted it correctly. And
And we can never know that on a computer because you can't go back. And I know I have a really, really good friend, someone I love and respect so much. And he believes that what he believes that he can tell on the computer whether it's been hacked or not. And I say we all should be able to, constitutionally, every candidate has a right to have poll watchers. A poll
yeah,
watcher watching a computer is not a poll watcher. That
right,
is a poll watcher gets to see that the person who says Tenna got marked on the tally sheet. Tenna marked on the tally sheet. The other opponent marked on the tally sheet. That
right.
is that you it has to be auditable. It has to A poll watcher actually has to see that they're counted and which ones are counted to know that it's accurate, and it should always be counted at least twice, if not three times. I always say you have to vote, you have to count it three times, but at least twice with the same results. So you
Which is
cannot do that on a phone.
which
And
is why we do need volunteers to help
yes,
count. So, for
Yes.
example, I'm a state delegate, but if some of the state delegates would volunteer in their county to go and count,
Yes.
and then
Right.
if some of the county delegates would volunteer to go to the state and count, that would be a really big help.
And please don't think you have to be a delegate to go count,
Right.
because you can
Anybody.
just be a citizen and say, I care. So I will be happy to go count. And it doesn't even take that long. But here's what is true. People are going to mock me for this, and people that are tech people are going to say it's ridiculous. But I know from my life experience, all the times I have sat there in county and state conventions and checked and rechecked and had all these problems with technology, we could have counted the votes in less time, and that
Yeah.
is a fact. I'm
Yeah.
not making it up. It's not hyperbolic. It is true. We spend so much time verifying and checking it, where if you have a good team, and you need a lot of volunteers, you can count the votes manually, and then you know that they
Right.
are accurate, and the poll watchers can watch. No one can test it at all, and you have verified it. So I would suggest, and you get to do whatever you want to, people, but I suggest when they come up and they say, we would like to switch the form of voting to paper balloting, if you just vote for that right off, it's going to save you hours of time,
Yeah.
both in voting and revoting and arguing about whether we're going to do it or not, all
Yeah.
that time it takes. The other time is checking the machines and checking to make sure the system is working, and all the downtime, because it won't work smoothly and effectively. We always do it, but it always has so many heart bumps to it. Where if we just go with paper ballots right off the top, boom, everyone votes. You might have to vote twice. You might even have to vote three times, but you can vote, you can count so quickly, and you have the results so quickly, and you can audit it, and you know they're legitimate. And that is, and think about how sacred the vote is. Of all the things where we want to be efficient, because I love efficiency, like I'm all over efficiency. But this is a place I want accuracy over efficiency.
Right.
This is a place where if we don't have a vote, we can never have liberty. We can never have freedom. So it's more important to be accurate than it is efficient. And
That's
if you want to be efficient, then go with paper ballots, because it is honestly, at this point in the game, the most efficient way to do it. So
right.
that is my suggestion and recommendation to people. More information that you might want to have. So then when you go there, usually at the state conventions, when you're voting for a state, like a state senator, or like that doesn't pertain to all of the state delegates, that's usually done before the state convention. So you'll need to go early, and you will receive notification. Be sure you do it, because these races often come down to one vote. One vote would make a difference, and that is determined because one person didn't get there early enough. They didn't find a parking place. They didn't get credentialed. They didn't know what room to go to. So go early so you can go in and make sure your vote counts on the state ones that are usually done in advance.
I just want to say too, you know what? There are many times I went to the state convention or I've been to the county convention and I was not a delegate. I would
Right.
encourage everybody to just go
Yes.
and see what it's like. Go and talk to the candidates, because those are candidates that may or may not be running in a primary. They will be running
Right.
in the general election. But I would go, even if you're not a delegate and you can't spend the whole day, just go to see what it's like and go to
Yes.
get a feel for it. The state conventions are actually kind of fun. They're bigger. There's a
They
lot of people
are.
there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Mhm.
candidates there. It's huge. And so it's like this fair of people. And so if you want to get a feel for it, I would go. Just try it. It's
Yes.
really quite a fun experience.
And if
Take
you're
your
not
little
a delegate, you can leave when you want to.
That's right. That's right.
That's if you're a delegate, you need to stay
Yeah.
till the end. And one other part of being a delegate is that you then, because you are elected by your neighborhood, you need to return and report. So you need to let your precinct know this is what happened. This is a chance for you to educate them on the principles. I vetted these people. This is what they believed in. This is who I decided to vote for. This is my
Right.
first vote. This might be my second. But why I voted, why I chose who I did, and give them why. Because if you just say, oh, I voted for this person, they deserve to know why you voted that way. And that way you're educating them on who is the most constitutional candidate, not what they hear in the media, but now they're being educated. who actually is the best candidate.
Right.
So that's really important. So we also do that. So thank you, Tana. Thank you so much for being with
Yes,
us.
thank you.
TanaHartman.net, TanaHartman.com. And be sure to go to utahgrassroots.org and get a report card, prolife.org, utahprolife.org, and Utah Taxpayers Association. Thanks so much for
Perfect.
being with us. And remember that you are the guardian of your liberty. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.